Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something truly cringeworthy. Imagine waking up with a toothache so profound, it feels like a tiny, angry badger is nesting in your jaw. Now, imagine your only options are a rusty pair of pliers wielded by a blacksmith. Or perhaps, if you're lucky, some ancient concoction of ground up mouse brains and crocodile dung. Sounds delightful. Right. This isn't just some morbid curiosity for much of human history. Dental problems weren't just painful, they were literal death sentences. Infections could spread like wildfire, turning a simple cavity into a full-blown systemic nightmare. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the scorching heat of ancient Egypt. The scent of dust and something vaguely herbal hanging in the air. You feel a dull throb in your upper right molar. A familiar ache that's been growing steadily worse. This isn't just discomfort, it's a deep, persistent pain that makes eating a torment and sleep a distant dream. Back then, there were no sparkling clean dental offices with soothing music and gentle hygienists. Oh no. Your options were far more rustic. The ancient Egyptians, despite their incredible advancements in other areas, had a surprisingly brutal relationship with their teeth. Their diet, heavy in coarse grains and sand-laden bread, acted like sandpaper on their enamel, grinding it down over time. This constant abrasion exposed the softer dentin beneath, making teeth incredibly vulnerable to decay and abscesses. You see, even without refined sugar, these ancient diets presented their own unique challenges. Imagine a scribe, hunched over his papyrus, his face contorted in agony. His teeth, worn almost flat, are riddled with cavities. The pain is relentless. What does he do? He might seek out a doctor of teeth, a specialized practitioner, though their methods would likely send shivers down your modern spine. These early dentists weren't exactly operating with sterile environments or advanced pain management. Their tools, likely simple, sturdy instruments, perhaps made of bronze or iron, designed more for brute force than delicate precision. You might find them using primitive drills, perhaps a bow drill similar to those used for starting fires. To try and bore out decay, the thought alone makes your teeth clench. Doesn't it the sheer courage, or perhaps desperation, required to endure such a procedure is almost unfathomable. You observe a woman with a swollen jaw, pus oozing from around a decaying tooth. The infection has spread, turning her cheek into a taut, inflamed balloon. In ancient times, a dental abscess was a truly terrifying prospect. Without antibiotics, these infections could quickly escalate, leading to widespread sepsis. You'd see fever, chills, and eventually, if left untreated, the infection could spread to the brain or heart, resulting in a slow, agonizing death. It's a sobering thought. Something as common as a modern-day cavity could become a fatal ordeal. Historians still debate the exact prevalence of death from dental infections, but the evidence of severe bone destruction around tooth roots in ancient skeletons tells a grim tale. It's a testament to the resilience of the human body, but also a stark reminder of our vulnerability. Perhaps you're not in Egypt, but ancient Mesopotamia, where the toothworm was believed to be the culprit behind all dental pain. Yes, a toothworm. This mythical creature, often depicted as a tiny serpent or insect, was thought to burrow into the tooth, causing agony. To expel this phantom pest, you might be subjected to a ritualistic incantation, or more disturbingly, a fumigation treatment where burning herbs or seeds were held near the aching tooth. The smoke intended to drive out the worm. Imagine holding your mouth over a smoking brazier, hoping to literally smoke out the pain. It's bizarre, yes, but for people grappling with unimaginable agony and a complete lack of scientific understanding, these desperate remedies offered a sliver of hope. You stumble upon a marketplace in ancient Rome, where a public tooth extraction is underway. A burly individual, perhaps a barber surgeon, is preparing to yank a molar from a screaming patient. The anesthetic. A few swigs of wine, if you're lucky, or perhaps nothing at all. The tools look more like instruments of torture than healing. It's a raw, visceral spectacle. The patient is held down, their face contorted in agony. As the tooth is pried and pulled, Roman dental care. While sometimes surprisingly advanced for its time, they did develop early forms of dental prosthetics like gold crowns and fixed bridges, still lacked effective pain control. You might see evidence of intricate work, but the process of getting it done was pure torment. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen we talked about? Well, Roman dental cures could be just as outlandish, sometimes involving bizarre ingredients like pulverized mouse bones or even urine as mouthwashes. The desperation for relief truly knew no bounds. Consider the wealthy Roman citizen, perhaps a senator, who loses a front tooth. Social status dictated that such a visible gap was unacceptable. So, what did they do? They might have had replacement teeth made from bone or ivory, painstakingly carved and then sometimes attached to neighboring teeth with gold wire. This was an early form of cosmetic dentistry, driven by societal pressures as much as by function. It's a fascinating glimpse into how aesthetics, even in ancient times, played a role in dental practices. But getting that replacement tooth would still involve a trip to that same barber surgeon. The same lack of anesthesia. And the same terrifying tools. The juxtaposition of sophisticated prosthetics with barbaric procedures is truly striking. The air thickens with the stench of decay as you witness the consequences of poor oral hygiene in ancient societies. You see individuals with gnarled, discolored teeth, entire rows missing, or mouths plagued by chronic gum disease, periodontal disease. The silent destroyer of smiles was rampant, without regular brushing or flossing as we know it. Plaque and tartar would build up relentlessly, leading to inflamed gums, bone loss, and eventually, tooth loss. Imagine living your entire life with the constant discomfort of inflamed gums, the metallic taste of blood, and the social stigma of a foul breath. It wasn't just about pain, it was about the fundamental inability to eat, to speak clearly, and to present oneself in society. Even the most powerful figures weren't immune. You read about emperors and pharaohs, despite their immense wealth and access to the best available care, still suffering from horrendous dental issues. King Tutankhamun, for example, suffered from severe dental abscesses that likely contributed to his weakened state. It's a humbling reminder that regardless of status, the basic biological realities of tooth decay and infection were universal. There was no escaping the inevitable consequences of a diet and lifestyle that fostered poor oral health. The constant gnawing pain, the inability to properly chew food, the ever-present threat of infection, these were the silent companions of royalty and commoner alike. You might wonder about the preventative measures. Did they even try to clean their teeth? Well, yes, but not in the way you're used to. You might see people using chew sticks, twigs with frayed ends, to rub against their teeth and gums. Some cultures used abrasive powders made from things like crushed eggshells, ox hooves, or even charcoal, mixed with honey to form a kind of primitive toothpaste. Imagine the grit, the strange flavors, the utter lack of minty freshness. While these methods offered some minor benefit in removing food particles, they were hardly effective against the relentless assault of bacteria. The concept of regular, thorough brushing for preventative care was still millennia away. It was more about reactive cleaning than proactive prevention. The sheer volume of historical evidence of severe dental pathology is staggering. Skeletons unearthed from ancient burial sites consistently show signs of extensive tooth decay, abscesses, and bone loss. It's a pervasive problem that spans cultures and continents. Archaeologists often use dental remains to infer diet, health, and even social status of ancient populations. A mouth full of worn, diseased teeth tells a story of hardship, pain, and a constant battle against the forces of nature. And through all of this, you realize just how incredibly fortunate you are to live in an age where a simple visit to the dentist can alleviate so much suffering and prevent so many horrors. The historical suffering alone is enough to make you appreciate your toothbrush a little more. You're now transported from the sun-drenched sands of ancient lands to the chilly, damp confines of medieval Europe. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth, wood smoke, and, if you're close enough to the average person, a pungent blend of unwashed bodies and distinctly unhealthy breath. Life here is hard, and dentistry, well, that's an even harder truth in this era. The specialized doctor of teeth has largely vanished. Instead, you'll find yourself turning to the local barber surgeon, a multi-talented individual whose skills range from a quick shave to a crude amputation. And, of course, tooth pulling. It's not exactly a reassuring thought, is it? Imagine you're a peasant in a small village, and that familiar, relentless throb in your jaw has returned? Worse than ever. You've tried all the folk remedies poultices of herbs, chanting, even sleeping with a raw onion under your pillow, but nothing has worked. Your face is swollen, and the pain is so intense it makes you weep. Your only recourse is the barber surgeon, who likely operates out of a small, dimly lit room, his tools laid out on a stained wooden table. These aren't precision instruments, they're more like the kind of implements you'd expect to find in a torture chamber than a healing clinic. Think of heavy, crudely forged iron pincers, designed for one-purpose extraction. The sheer brutality of the process is almost beyond comprehension. You watch as a distraught woman, clutching her jaw, enters the barber surgeon's makeshift clinic. She points to a blackened, decaying tooth. The barber surgeon, perhaps after a cursory glance, instructs her to sit. There's no anesthetic. Beyond maybe a swig of rough ale or a prayer, the patient is held firmly by an assistant, or sometimes even by concerned family members. Then, with a grunt and a mighty heave, the barber surgeon applies the pincers. The sound of tearing flesh and cracking bone, coupled with the woman's piercing scream, echoes through the room. It's a grisly, terrifying ordeal. Infections were a near certainty after such a violent procedure, often leading to prolonged suffering and, all too frequently, death. You might escape the toothache, only to succumb to the resulting septicemia. It's a stark reminder that sometimes. The cure was almost as bad as the disease, the medieval diet, while perhaps less abrasive than the ancient Egyptian, still presented significant challenges. Coarse bread, often mixed with grit from primitive milling stones, and a lack of varied nutrients meant teeth were still vulnerable. Sugary foods were rare, reserved mostly for the wealthy, but even without them, a lack of consistent oral hygiene led to widespread decay. The concept of regular brushing was virtually non-existent. People might rinse their mouths with water or use a rough cloth. But the kind of systematic cleaning we practice today was simply not a part of their daily routine. This widespread neglect meant that by adulthood, many individuals would have lost multiple teeth, their mouths a testament to a lifetime of pain and neglect. You might observe a monk in a monastery, diligently copying manuscripts. His brow furrowed not just from concentration, but from a persistent toothache, even those in religious orders. With access to slightly better living conditions, were not immune. Monastic records sometimes mention tooth complaints and remedies, which often included prayers, herbal concoctions, or, failing that, the inevitable visit to a barber surgeon. The sheer endurance required to live with chronic dental pain in an age without effective painkillers is astounding. Imagine trying to focus on intricate calligraphy or complex theological debates while a relentless, throbbing agony reverberates through your skull. It's enough to make you wince just thinking about it. Consider the notion of bad humors. Medieval medicine was heavily influenced by the theory of the four humors blood: phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. An imbalance of these humors was believed to cause illness, and toothaches were often attributed to a cold or hot humor in the tooth. This meant remedies could be incredibly esoteric, involving bleeding, purging, or applying various substances to try and rebalance the humors. You might find a physician prescribing a poultice of specific herbs to draw out the bad humor, or perhaps even suggesting a tooth be cauterized with a hot iron to burn away the infection. Historians still debate the extent to which humoral theory truly impacted practical dental intervention, but its influence on medical thought was undeniable. It meant that instead of addressing the actual cause of decay, practitioners were often chasing after an invisible, theoretical imbalance. You notice the social implications of poor dental health. A gapped, rotten smile wasn't just painful, it could be a significant social handicap. While less emphasized than in ancient Rome, outward appearance still mattered. Someone with a perpetually swollen face or missing front teeth might be seen as less fortunate, perhaps even less intelligent. Eating was also a communal activity, and struggling to chew could be embarrassing. Imagine trying to participate in a medieval feast with hard bread and tough meat. When every bite sends excruciating pain through your jaw, the simple act of sustenance became a daily battle. One of the more bizarre medieval cures you might encounter involves wearing a dead mole's paw around your neck as an amulet against toothache, or perhaps even rubbing a dead mouse against the affected tooth. These practices, born out of superstition and desperation, highlight the profound lack of scientific understanding. The sheer absurdity of some of these remedies underscores the abject fear and helplessness people felt when faced with the relentless pain of a decaying tooth. They would try anything, no matter how outlandish, in the desperate hope of relief. Another fascinating, if disturbing, detail of medieval dental practices was the use of dental transplants. If a wealthy person lost a front tooth, they might have a healthy tooth extracted from a poor individual or even a cadaver, and then attempt to implant it into the socket. The success rate, as you can imagine, was abysmal. Infection, rejection, and further suffering were the almost inevitable outcomes. But the very idea speaks to the lengths people would go to preserve their appearance. Even when faced with incredible pain and risk, it's a testament to the vanity that seems to transcend all historical periods. Even those as harsh as the Middle Ages, you observe the stark contrast between the rural peasant and the urban dweller. While the peasant might have access only to the local barber surgeon, a wealthy lord or lady in a bustling city might seek out a slightly more refined practitioner, perhaps one with a rudimentary understanding of herbs and poultices, or even a foreign tooth drawer who claimed more advanced skills. However, even these slight advantages didn't fundamentally change the brutal reality of dental interventions. The underlying problem of infection and excruciating pain remained. The lack of true scientific understanding meant that, for most, dental health was a lottery, and the odds were rarely in your favor. The pervasive nature of dental disease in the Middle Ages is evident in archaeological finds. Skeletons from this period consistently show high rates of tooth decay, abscesses, and signs of chronic gum disease. It's a powerful, silent testament to the suffering endured by so many. You might see a skull with a gaping hole where an abscess burst through the jawbone, or teeth worn down to mere stumps. These skeletal remains whisper tales of endless throbbing pain, of sleepless nights, and of the constant struggle to eat. It's a reminder that beneath the grand narratives of kings and castles lay the grinding, often horrifying, reality of everyday physical suffering. The medieval mouth was, more often than not, a landscape of agony. Landscape, you're now stepping out of the shadowy, unhygienic streets of medieval Europe and into the burgeoning light of the Renaissance. It's an era of rebirth, of incredible artistic and scientific advancements, where anatomy is being meticulously studied, and new understandings of the human body are slowly emerging. But when it comes to your teeth, the reality is still surprisingly grim. While there's a growing intellectual curiosity about the body, this doesn't immediately translate into widespread. Effective dental care. The barber surgeon is still very much in business, though perhaps now with slightly more sophisticated tools. Looking less like medieval torture devices and a little more like, well, slightly less barbaric torture devices. Imagine you're a patron of the arts in Florence, admiring Michelangelo's David, when a sharp, excruciating pain suddenly shoots through your jaw. You've heard whispers of new anatomical drawings, of detailed dissections, but none of that seems to help the incessant throbbing behind your molars. The Renaissance, for all its brilliance, was still a time when dental knowledge was rudimentary at best. Decay was often attributed to an imbalance of humors, or even to cold invading the tooth, rather than the bacterial action we understand today. This meant that the fundamental approach to treatment remained largely focused on pain relief and as a last resort. Extraction. You might seek out a practitioner who calls himself a dentist or tooth drawer, differentiating himself slightly from the general barber surgeon. These individuals, often self-taught or having apprenticed with others, might boast a slightly gentler touch or a new, specialized tool. However, the core procedure for a severely decayed tooth remained the same: pull it out. The tools might be more varied now, perhaps including levers and elevators designed to loosen teeth. But the process was still agonizing. Anesthesia as we know it was non-existent. You might be offered a strong drink, or even opium if you were wealthy enough. But mostly, it was brute force and a prayer. Consider the lifestyle of the Renaissance elite. With newfound wealth came access to more luxurious goods, including refined sugars and sweet pastries. These were a status symbol, a delicious indulgence. But for your teeth, they were a disaster waiting to happen. While the poor continued to suffer from abrasive diets and neglected hygiene, the wealthy now faced an unprecedented onslaught of decay caused by these sugary treats. It's a fascinating paradox as society progressed in many ways. The very foods that signified affluence actively contributed to widespread dental problems among those who could afford them. Historians still debate the exact impact of sugar on the acceleration of dental decay during the Renaissance. But the increase in archaeological evidence of cavities among the upper classes strongly suggests a correlation. You might witness a public extraction in a bustling city square, while perhaps less common than in the Middle Ages. The spectacle still draws a crowd. The dentist might have a small platform, showcasing his various implements. Perhaps even a collection of extracted teeth as grim trophies. The patient's screams are still public knowledge, a reminder to onlookers of the constant threat of dental pain. It's a testament to the fact that even amidst the splendor of Renaissance art and philosophy, the raw, brutal reality of human suffering remained ever present. One peculiar belief you might encounter is the idea that worms lived inside aching teeth. This ancient superstition persisted. Even as anatomical studies advanced, some practitioners would attempt to fumigate the tooth with smoke from burning seeds, believing the fumes would drive out or kill these invisible worms. Others might apply strange concoctions directly to the tooth, hoping to poison the supposed inhabitants. It's a striking example of how deeply entrenched superstitions could be. Even in an age that celebrated reason and scientific inquiry, imagine your tooth throbbing, and someone suggesting you inhale smoke. Convinced there's a tiny creature burrowing within, you might also see the beginnings of dental prosthetics becoming slightly more refined, while still crude by modern standards. Efforts were made to create artificial teeth from animal bone, ivory, or even human teeth extracted from cadavers or the poor. These were often held in place with silk ligatures or metal wire for those who had lost front teeth. The desire to maintain appearances was strong, leading to these often uncomfortable and unhygienic solutions. The irony is that the very act of obtaining and fitting these prosthetics would have been incredibly painful, often contributing to further infection in the mouth. Think about the sheer pain involved. Without modern anesthetics, every procedure, from cleaning a deep cavity to pulling a tooth, was a journey into agony. Imagine the dread that would wash over you with the first twinge of a toothache, knowing the only true relief involved a medieval-style extraction. People lived with chronic, debilitating pain for extended periods, simply because the alternative was often just as terrifying. The resilience of the human spirit in enduring such suffering is truly remarkable, but also a poignant reminder of the advancements we often take for granted. You observe the rudimentary instruments for cleaning, while toothbrushes as we know them were still far off. Some individuals, especially the wealthy, might use small sticks or quills to pick at food lodged between their teeth. Abrasive powders, similar to those used in ancient times, might be applied with a cloth. The goal was more about freshening breath and removing visible debris than about preventing decay through bacterial removal. The knowledge of microscopic organisms and their role in dental disease was still centuries away, meaning these efforts were largely ineffectual against the underlying causes of tooth decay and gum disease. The limited understanding of infection control also meant that simple procedures could turn deadly. A successful extraction could still lead to a fatal systemic infection if the wound became contaminated. Bloodletting, a common medical practice of the time, might even be performed in an attempt to balance the humors or reduce inflammation associated with a toothache, further weakening the patient and making them more susceptible to infection. It was a vicious cycle of pain, desperate intervention, and often tragic consequences. The Renaissance, while a golden age for many things, was still very much a dark age for dental comfort. You're now moving forward from the Renaissance, leaving behind its blossoming art and its lingering, brutal dental practices, and stepping into the age of the Enlightenment. This is a period marked by reason, scientific inquiry, and a burgeoning interest in understanding the natural world through observation and experimentation. You might think this means an immediate leap to comfortable, modern dentistry, but you'd be sorely mistaken. While significant intellectual shifts are occurring, the transition to truly effective and pain-free dental care is still a slow, arduous process. The tooth drawer is still a prominent figure, but now, a few pioneering individuals are beginning to apply scientific principles to the study of the mouth. Imagine you're a gentleman or a lady in 18th century London, attending a witty salon, your mind alight with discussions of philosophy and new scientific discoveries. Suddenly, a familiar ache begins to pulse in your jaw. You're aware of the latest theories on electricity and optics. But when it comes to your teeth, the solutions feel anything but enlightened. The prevailing understanding of dental decay is still quite limited, while the toothworm superstition is beginning to wane in educated circles. The true cause of cavities, bacteria, and acid remains largely unknown instead. Theories often revolve around putrefaction or inflammation, or even simply the natural process of aging. You might consult an emerging professional who calls himself a dentist or surgeon dentist. Distinguishing himself from the general barber surgeon, these early dentists, often French or English, are starting to publish texts and treatises on dental anatomy and procedures. They're trying to elevate their profession from a crude trade to a legitimate branch of medicine. You might find them in more respectable settings, perhaps even a dedicated dental office. Though it would be a far cry from what you recognize today, these pioneers are beginning to develop slightly more sophisticated tools. designed for a greater degree of precision than the old. Blunt instruments. Observe a patient. Perhaps a wealthy merchant, seated nervously as the dentist prepares to examine his mouth. The dentist might use small mirrors or probes, innovations that allow for a slightly better view of the oral cavity. However, when it comes to intervention, the primary solution for significant decay is still extraction, while the tools might be sharper and the technique slightly refined. The lack of effective anesthesia means the process is still excruciatingly painful. You might be offered laudanum and opium tincture or a strong alcoholic drink. But for the most part, you're simply expected to endure. The screams are still very much a part of the procedure, just perhaps slightly more contained within the walls of a private practice rather than a public square. The Enlightenment saw an increase in the consumption of sugar, tea, and coffee across all social strata. Not just the elite. As these once luxurious items became more accessible, the incidence of dental decay skyrocketed. You see families, from the burgeoning middle class to the gentry, enjoying sweet treats and hot beverages that were silently eroding their enamel. This widespread dietary shift led to an epidemic of cavities, making dental problems an almost universal experience. Historians still debate the precise socio-economic factors that led to the increased sugar consumption during this period. But its undeniable impact on public dental health is a well-established fact. You encounter early attempts at dental fillings, usually crude and temporary. Materials like lead, gold, or even tin were sometimes used to plug cavities. But these fillings were often short-lived, failing to prevent further decay or simply falling out. The concept of preparing a tooth properly before filling it was not fully understood, leading to high failure rates. Imagine the frustration of enduring a painful filling procedure, only for the filling to dislodge days later. Bringing back the agony. It was a constant battle. With limited tools and even more limited understanding of the enemy within your mouth, consider the social stigma associated with bad teeth, while not always openly discussed. A smile marred by decay or missing teeth could still affect your appearance and social standing. People tried various methods to whiten their teeth, some of which were incredibly damaging, like using strong acids or abrasive powders that further eroded enamel. You might see individuals constantly trying to hide their mouths when they spoke or smiled, a silent acknowledgement of their dental woes. The desire for a pleasing appearance, even when painful and difficult to achieve, persisted. One particularly bizarre remedy you might hear about is the application of tobacco juice to an aching tooth, or even packing tobacco directly into a cavity. While tobacco does have some mild anesthetic properties, its long-term effects on oral health are, as we now know, devastating. The irony of using something that fundamentally harms your teeth as a cure is truly striking. It speaks to the desperate search for relief. Even if the methods were misguided and ultimately detrimental, you also see the increasing popularity of false teeth, especially among the wealthy. These were often made from human teeth, either extracted from paupers or even purchased from battlefield scavengers. These Waterloo teeth taken from fallen soldiers after the Battle of Waterloo were a gruesome but readily available source. You might also find dentures crafted from ivory or animal bone, painstakingly carved to fit. These prosthetics, while visually impressive, were often uncomfortable, ill-fitting, and incredibly unhygienic. Imagine the constant irritation, the difficulty of eating, and the sheer challenge of keeping them clean. It was a trade-off between appearance and comfort, often leaning heavily towards suffering for the sake of aesthetics. The Enlightenment also saw the beginnings of formal dental education, albeit in a very limited capacity. Pioneers like Pierre Fauchard, often considered the father of modern dentistry, published influential works that systematized existing knowledge and proposed new techniques. You might see his famous work, The Surgeon Dentist, open on a desk, its detailed illustrations and descriptions laying the groundwork for a more scientific approach. But even with these groundbreaking texts, the practical application of this knowledge was slow to disseminate. The vast majority of people still relied on local, untrained tooth pullers. The gap between theoretical advancement and everyday practice remained enormous, leaving most of the population still facing the grim realities of medieval-style dental care. You're now moving from the Age of Enlightenment, where scientific curiosity was just beginning to brush against the grim reality of dental health, and stepping into the bustling, smoke-filled cities of the Victorian era. This is a time of immense social change, industrial revolution, and burgeoning medical understanding. Yet, for all its advancements, the Victorian age grappled with dental problems on a scale perhaps unprecedented, largely due to a sweet, insidious enemy, sugar. While you might expect great strides in comfort, the reality for your teeth is still far from pleasant, often teetering between crude necessity and a nascent, yet still brutal, professionalism. Imagine you're a factory worker in a grimy industrial city. Your day's long and hard. Your only solace perhaps a sweet pastry or a strong cup of tea. Suddenly, a familiar, searing pain erupts in your mouth. Or perhaps you're a lady of leisure, sipping afternoon tea with perfectly brewed Earl Grey and delicate biscuits, when a sensitivity in your tooth sends a jolt through your system. The Victorian diet, particularly with the widespread availability of cheap sugar, became a veritable minefield for oral health. Sugar, once a luxury, was now an affordable commodity, leading to an explosion of cavities across all social classes. It was a silent epidemic, rotting teeth faster than any previous generation. You might find yourself in the waiting room of a dental surgeon, a term that now carries a bit more gravitas than tooth drawer. These practitioners, often trained through apprenticeships rather than formal schooling, are starting to organize themselves into professional bodies. You might see a range of new tools on display, looking more refined, certainly, but still designed for invasive procedures. The operating environment might be slightly cleaner, perhaps even a dedicated chair for the patient. A far cry from the medieval marketplace. But don't be fooled by the veneer of professionalism. The core experience of pain remains largely unchanged. Observe a patient undergoing an extraction. While some early forms of anesthesia are beginning to emerge, notably nitrous oxide laughing gas and ether, they are often expensive, not widely available, or administered with varying degrees of success and safety. You might be given a few whiffs of gas, enough to make you woozy, but perhaps not entirely numb to the excruciating pain as a tooth is wrenched from your jaw. Or, more likely, you're still relying on brute force and your own stoicism. The sounds of cracking bone and agonized cries are still distressingly common, a chilling reminder of the raw reality beneath the polished Victorian surface. Consider the desperate lengths people went to manage dental pain at home. You might see advertisements for various toothache drops or nerve tonics, often containing potent, addictive substances like cocaine or laudanum. These offered temporary relief, but at a dangerous cost, masking the underlying problem and leading to further decay or addiction. It was a vicious cycle: pain, temporary relief, and ultimately, worsening health. Historians still debate the full extent of addiction fueled by these readily available dental remedies, but their widespread use is well documented. The Victorian era also saw significant advancements, however grim. In the field of dental prosthetics, the demand for false teeth was enormous. Given the widespread tooth loss, Waterloo teeth, actual human teeth harvested from battlefields, continued to be used, but so too did ivory, bone, and eventually, the revolutionary material of vulcanite. This hard, reddish rubber could be molded to create more comfortable and affordable dentures. You might see someone confidently smiling with a full set of vulcanite dentures, a vast improvement in aesthetics and function. Even if they still required meticulous cleaning and were far from perfect, it was a testament to the ingenuity born out of widespread need. You notice the increasing focus on hygiene, albeit often in a rudimentary way. The concept of bad breath and the social discomfort it caused led to the development of early mouthwashes and breath fresheners, while systematic brushing with toothbrushes was still not universal. More people were beginning to understand the importance of some form of daily oral care. You might see a small bottle of odorless disinfectant, or a coarse bristle brush made of animal hair, representing the slow dawn of preventative measures. One particularly grim aspect of Victorian dental history was the plight of the poor, without access to even the basic, painful services of a dental surgeon. Their only recourse was often self-extraction or enduring unimaginable suffering. You might hear tales of people using pliers, strings, or even attempting to knock out their own teeth against hard surfaces in a desperate bid for relief. The class divide in dental care was stark, agonizing. Crude methods for the poor, and slightly less agonizing, slightly less crude methods for the wealthy. It was a constant struggle for dignity and survival. The fascination with the grotesque also played a role. You might find dentists displaying their collection of extracted teeth, or even offering to sell the teeth of the poor to the wealthy for use in dentures. This trade in human teeth, while unsettling to modern sensibilities, was a common practice driven by the high demand for false teeth. It's a chilling reminder of the value placed on a good smile. Even if it came at the expense of someone else's natural teeth, you observe the burgeoning field of dental mechanics, individuals who specialized in crafting dentures and other prosthetic devices. These were often highly skilled artisans, working with precision to create custom fits. Their workshops might be filled with molds, waxes, and the distinctive smell of vulcanite being processed. The demand was so high that it fueled an entire industry, separate from the actual tooth pulling. The academic argument remains open as to whether these mechanical advancements outpaced the understanding of underlying oral disease. But they certainly provided a vital service for those who had already lost their natural teeth. You're now stepping out of the Victorian era, leaving behind its sugary indulgences and its crude, if increasingly professional, dental practices. You're entering the turbulent early 20th century, a period defined by rapid technological advancements, 2 devastating world wars, and a growing understanding of public health. For your teeth, this means a slow, sometimes agonizing, transition from barbaric remedies to something that vaguely resembles modern dentistry, while the core challenges of decay and infection persist. There's a newfound focus on prevention and, crucially, pain management. Imagine you're a young recruit preparing for the trenches of World War I, or a factory worker on the home front, contributing to the war effort. The strain is immense, and your diet, while perhaps healthier in some aspects than the sugar-laden Victorian one, is often lacking. Dental health among soldiers, for example, becomes a critical issue. Poor teeth meant soldiers couldn't chew their rations, were constantly in pain, and were highly susceptible to infections that could incapacitate them. This practical necessity, the need for a fit fighting force, began to push the envelope for more accessible and efficient dental care. You find yourself in a dentist's office that, for the first time, might look somewhat familiar. The sterile white tiles, the distinctive smell of antiseptics, and the imposing dental chair with its various attachments. The dentist is now almost certainly a formally trained professional, having gone through dedicated dental schools that emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The tools are sharper, more precise, and there's a growing understanding of asepsis, preventing infection through sterilization. This is a game changer, significantly reducing the deadly complications that once followed even simple extractions. Observe a patient undergoing a filling. The use of local anesthetics, particularly Novocaine introduced in 1905, begins to revolutionize pain control. You might receive an injection that numbs a specific area of your mouth, allowing the dentist to work without the agonizing screams of previous eras. This is a monumental shift for the first time. Complex dental work could be performed with significantly reduced pain, transforming the patient experience. Of course, it wasn't universally available or perfect, and some procedures still relied on your fortitude, but the era of relentless agony was slowly, thankfully, starting to recede. Consider the pervasive impact of dietary changes and socioeconomic disparities. While local anesthetics were a boon, cavities remained rampant. The widespread availability of processed foods, often high in sugar and refined carbohydrates, continued to fuel an epidemic of decay. You see children, their teeth riddled with cavities, often suffering from chronic pain and poor nutrition due to their inability to chew properly. The link between diet and dental health was slowly being recognized. But changing deeply ingrained eating habits proved to be a formidable challenge. Historians still debate the precise impact of early 20th century food processing on the overall trajectory of dental health. But the rise in sugar consumption prior to widespread preventative care is undeniable. You notice the beginnings of public health campaigns focused on oral hygiene. Educational posters might appear in schools or public clinics, emphasizing the importance of brushing your teeth. While toothbrushes were more common, the proper technique and regularity of brushing were far from universal. You might see rudimentary dental hygiene instructions, perhaps advocating the use of a simple paste. The focus was shifting from merely treating problems to preventing them. A crucial paradigm shift. Even if the tools for effective prevention were still primitive, one quirky, yet ultimately tragic. Detail of this era is the use of radium in some early dental applications, before its dangers were fully understood. Radium was sometimes incorporated into toothpastes or even given as a tonic for various ailments, including dental problems, falsely believing it had beneficial properties. The sheer ignorance of its highly radioactive nature and the subsequent health consequences for those exposed is a chilling reminder of how scientific exploration can sometimes go horribly wrong before the full picture emerges. The First and Second World Wars put immense pressure on dental services. You see mobile dental units on the front lines, hastily pulling teeth or performing emergency procedures to keep soldiers fighting. Back home, dentists were either conscripted or struggled to meet the demands of a civilian population, facing rationing and stress. The sheer volume of dental problems highlighted the critical need for better public health infrastructure and preventative care. The wars, despite their devastation, inadvertently accelerated the development of dental practices out of sheer necessity. You might also observe the slow introduction of dental X-rays. While rudimentary compared to modern imaging, these early X-rays allowed dentists to see beneath the surface of the tooth and bone for the first time, revealing hidden decay or abscesses. This technological leap enabled more accurate diagnoses and targeted treatments, moving dentistry further into the realm of precise medical science. Imagine the wonder, and perhaps a little fear, of seeing the inside of your own jaw for the first time. The early 20th century also saw the establishment of more standardized dental training and the regulation of the profession. Quackery and untrained tooth pullers gradually faded as professional bodies gained influence and public trust. You might read about the founding of national dental associations, working to establish ethical guidelines and advance scientific research. This institutionalization was vital in moving dentistry from a fragmented collection of trades to a recognized, evidence-based medical profession. You're now emerging from the shadow of the World Wars and the slow, often painful, advancements of early 20th century dentistry. You're entering a period that truly revolutionizes your experience at the dentist. A time when the agonizing historical journey begins to converge with the familiar comfort of the present day. This is the era of modern mouth miracles, where scientific breakthroughs, technological innovations, and a profound shift in understanding oral health transform what was once a dreaded ordeal into a routine, often pain-free, necessity. Imagine you're walking into a dental office in the mid to late 20th century. The whirring sound of the drill is still there. Yes, but it's different. It's faster, more precise. And most importantly, you're not bracing yourself for agony. This era sees the widespread adoption of high-speed drills, which dramatically cut down on the time required for procedures and, combined with effective anesthetics, significantly reduce patient discomfort. The sheer efficiency of these new tools means a drilling that once took minutes of excruciating pain can now be done in seconds with barely a sensation. Observe a routine dental checkup. The dentist is no longer just looking for obvious decay or infections. They're now equipped with tools for preventative care that were unimaginable to your historical counterparts. You might have a dental hygienist meticulously cleaning your teeth, removing plaque and tartar buildup with specialized instruments. This emphasis on regular cleaning and professional prophylaxis marks a fundamental shift from merely treating existing problems to actively preventing them from occurring in the first place. Consider the game-changing impact of fluoride, introduced into public water supplies and toothpaste. Fluoride proved to be a revolutionary weapon against tooth decay. You see communities experiencing dramatic drops in cavity rates, especially among children. This simple, yet incredibly effective, chemical significantly strengthens tooth enamel, making it more resistant to acid attacks from bacteria. It's a public health triumph, transforming the landscape of oral health and sparing countless individuals from the pain and suffering of rampant decay. Historians still debate the initial public acceptance and resistance to fluoridation, but its long-term impact on dental health is unequivocally positive. You notice the evolution of filling materials. Amalgam silver fillings, while used in earlier centuries, becomes more refined and durable, and perhaps more significantly for aesthetics. Composite resin's tooth-colored fillings begin to emerge. This means that a decayed tooth doesn't have to be patched up with a dark, conspicuous material. You can have a filling that blends seamlessly with your natural tooth, a small but significant step in both function and confidence. Imagine the relief of having a cavity filled without it being glaringly obvious every time you smile. The understanding of gum disease, periodontal disease, also undergoes a radical transformation. No longer just a vague, bad breath issue, it's now understood as a bacterial infection that can lead to bone loss and tooth loss. You might receive detailed instructions on proper brushing and flossing techniques, emphasizing the importance of daily home care in preventing this insidious condition. Specialized treatments for gum disease become available, from deep cleaning, scaling, and root planing to surgical interventions, all aimed at preserving your natural teeth for a lifetime. One fascinating development you encounter is the ability to save teeth that would have been immediately extracted in previous eras. Procedures like root canal therapy become increasingly common and successful when the pulp of a tooth becomes infected, instead of pulling the entire tooth. The dentist can now remove the infected tissue, clean out the canal, and seal it, allowing you to keep your natural tooth. This is a monumental shift, preserving function and aesthetics and sparing you the need for dentures or other prosthetics. It's a testament to the intricate understanding of tooth anatomy and pathology that has developed. You observe the remarkable precision offered by advanced diagnostic tools, such as improved X-ray technology that produces clearer images with less radiation exposure. Dentists can now identify problems much earlier, often before you even feel any pain, allowing for less invasive and more successful treatments. The guesswork of earlier centuries is replaced by detailed, evidence-based diagnosis, leading to more targeted and effective interventions. The development of dental education and research accelerates exponentially. Universities establish comprehensive dental schools, churning out highly trained professionals. Research labs delve deeper into the microbiology of dental disease, the biomechanics of chewing, and the development of new materials and techniques. This academic rigor forms the bedrock of modern dentistry, continuously pushing the boundaries of what's possible and refining existing practices. The days of the self-taught barber surgeon are firmly in the rearview mirror. You're now standing at the precipice of the future, looking beyond the comforting realities of modern dental practices and peering into what's next for your teeth. The journey from ancient agony to contemporary comfort has been long and arduous, but the advancements aren't slowing down. You're entering the realm of the future of fangs, where cutting-edge science, genetic engineering, and personalized medicine promise to redefine what dental care means, potentially making cavities and tooth loss relics of the past. Imagine a world where the very idea of a filling is quaint, a historical footnote. You might be considering a new type of dental visit, one where the focus isn't on repairing damage, but on preventing it at a genetic level or regenerating lost tissue. This isn't science fiction, it's the direction of active research. Scientists are exploring ways to manipulate the genes responsible for tooth development, aiming to create stronger, more resilient enamel that is virtually impervious to decay. Think about that, a future where your teeth are naturally cavity-proofed from birth. You encounter the fascinating concept of tooth regeneration. Instead of replacing a lost tooth with an implant or a denture, imagine being able to grow a brand new, natural tooth right in your jaw. Researchers are investigating the use of stem cells to stimulate the regrowth of entire teeth or specific tooth structures like dentin and enamel. You might see a lab where tiny, tooth-like structures are being cultivated, hinting at a future where you could literally regrow a tooth that was lost to decay or trauma. Historians still debate the specific ethical implications of widespread human tissue regeneration, but the scientific potential is undeniable. Observe a hypothetical future where personalized oral care is the norm, instead of a one-size-fits-all approach. Your dental care is tailored precisely to your unique genetic makeup and oral microbiome. You might have a genomic analysis that identifies your specific susceptibility to certain dental diseases, allowing for hyper-targeted preventative strategies. Imagine a toothpaste formulated specifically for your mouth, based on a detailed profile of the bacteria living within it, neutralizing harmful strains before they can cause problems. Consider the role of nanotechnology in future dentistry. Tiny, microscopic robots could potentially patrol your mouth, identifying and repairing microscopic lesions in enamel before they even become visible cavities. You might even have smart materials embedded in your teeth that release fluoride or other protective agents on demand, reacting to changes in your oral environment. The idea of these invisible guardians diligently protecting your smile is truly remarkable, transforming passive protection into active, intelligent defense. One incredible breakthrough you might witness is the development of vaccines against tooth decay. Imagine receiving a simple injection that trains your immune system to fight off the specific bacteria responsible for cavities. This would fundamentally alter the landscape of oral health, potentially eradicating dental caries as a major public health concern. The idea of never getting another cavity, simply because your body is armed to fight it, is almost too good to be true. Yet it's an active area of research. You might also see advancements in diagnostic imaging that go far beyond today's X-rays. Imagine three-dimensional, real-time scans that can detect the earliest signs of disease at a molecular level, allowing for intervention long before any pain or visible damage occurs. This proactive approach would mean smaller, less invasive treatments, making dental visits even more comfortable and efficient. The era of catching problems too late would truly be over. The concept of bioactive materials for fillings and crowns is also gaining traction. These materials wouldn't just sit passively in your mouth. They would actively interact with the surrounding tissue, releasing minerals to remineralize enamel, fighting bacteria, and even stimulating natural healing processes. You could have a filling that not only repairs a hole, but also actively improves the health of your tooth. Think about the potential for teledentistry and AI-driven diagnostics. You might have smart devices at home that can scan your mouth and send data directly to your dentist, allowing for remote monitoring and early detection of issues without a physical visit. Artificial intelligence could analyze vast amounts of data to predict your risk factors and recommend personalized preventative strategies, making dental care even more convenient and accessible. You're now stepping back from the tantalizing glimpse of future dental marvels and immersing yourself in a broader perspective, the societal and cultural impact of dental health throughout history. It's not just about pain or relief, it's about how your teeth, or the lack thereof, shaped social status, influenced diets, and even dictated fashion, from ancient grins to modern smiles. The story of teeth is deeply intertwined with the human experience, revealing surprising connections you might never have considered. Imagine living in a time when a full set of healthy teeth was a rare and valuable asset in many ancient and medieval societies. The loss of teeth was an undeniable sign of age, poverty, or illness. You might observe a wealthy noble, carefully preserving their few remaining teeth, while a common laborer, their mouth a ravaged landscape of gaps and stumps, struggles to chew even the simplest meal. This wasn't merely a health issue, it was a social differentiator, visibly marking one's place in the hierarchy. A bright, intact smile, however fleeting, could signify youth, vitality, and even divine favor. Consider the profound influence dental health had on dietary evolution. In ancient times, the abrasive nature of food, often laden with grit from primitive milling processes, wore down teeth prematurely. The shift towards softer, more refined foods, particularly with the introduction of widespread sugar in later centuries, fundamentally changed the types of dental problems people faced. You see a clear progression from worn-down teeth and abscesses in ancient skeletons to rampant cavities in post-Renaissance populations. This evolution in diet directly sculpted the challenges faced by dental practitioners and the suffering experienced by ordinary people. The concept of dental fashion also emerges in fascinating ways. In some cultures, particularly in certain ancient civilizations like the Mayans or Egyptians, teeth were adorned with precious metals or even jewels. Imagine a Mayan noble with jade inlays in their incisors, a dazzling display of wealth and status that also hinted at incredible pain endured for the sake of beauty. Or consider the brief trend in 17th century Europe for false teeth made from ivory, meticulously carved but often uncomfortable. These practices highlight how far people would go to conform to prevailing aesthetic standards. Even when it involved invasive and painful procedures, you might also observe the strong link between dental health and public speaking or performance. A clear, articulate voice relies on the proper formation of sounds, which can be significantly hampered by missing teeth. Imagine an orator in ancient Rome, struggling to command an audience with a whistling lisp caused by gaps in their smile, or a medieval singer, their voice production affected by chronic pain and an inability to properly articulate. While often overlooked, the functional aspect of teeth beyond just eating played a crucial role in social interaction and professional life. The historical shift from seeing dental problems as isolated ailments to understanding them as part of systemic health is a major cultural turning point. In earlier eras, a toothache was treated locally, often without any consideration for its broader impact on the body. You see a gradual realization that dental infections could lead to fever, sepsis, and even death. Forcing a more holistic view of oral health, this recognition elevated dentistry from a mere trade to a legitimate branch of medicine, changing public perception and pushing for greater scientific inquiry. The academic debate around when this holistic understanding became truly widespread is ongoing, but the evidence points to a slow, incremental shift from the Enlightenment onwards. Consider the psychological impact of living with chronic dental pain. Imagine the constant distraction, the inability to sleep, the perpetual sense of discomfort. This suffering, often endured for years, would undoubtedly affect one's mood, productivity, and overall quality of life. You see individuals who are perpetually irritable, withdrawn, or simply exhausted due to the relentless agony. It's a silent burden that transcends mere physical discomfort. Impacting mental well-being and social engagement, the evolution of dental tools and practices also reflects broader societal values. The brutal implements of the medieval barber surgeon speak to an era where pain was simply accepted as an unavoidable part of life. The gradual refinement of tools and the eventual introduction of anesthesia reflect a growing cultural emphasis on comfort, empathy, and the alleviation of suffering. You trace a line from brute force to precision, mirroring a larger societal progression towards humanitarian ideals. One poignant example of dental health's cultural significance is the tradition of tooth fairy myths or rituals surrounding the loss of primary teeth. Across many cultures, the shedding of baby teeth is marked by rituals, gifts, or beliefs about good luck, symbolizing a transition into childhood or even prosperity. While seemingly trivial, these practices highlight the symbolic importance placed on teeth, even from an early age, hinting at their perceived value as indicators of health and future fortune. You also see how warfare and exploration inadvertently spurred dental innovation. The need to maintain healthy teeth for soldiers and sailors, often on long voyages with limited resources, forced creative solutions and better preventative practices. Imagine the harsh realities of a sailor with rampant scurvy, losing his teeth on a months-long voyage, and the subsequent attempts to find dietary and hygienic solutions to prevent such debilitating conditions. Necessity, truly, was the mother of invention in this context. You're now taking a global tour, stepping beyond the Eurocentric narrative of dental history to discover the incredibly diverse, and sometimes astonishing, approaches to oral health from cultures across the world, from intricate adornments to surprising herbal remedies. The story of teeth is a truly universal one, reflecting humanity's shared struggle against decay and pain, but also its rich tapestry of beliefs and ingenuity. Imagine yourself in the lush jungles of the Mayan civilization, where teeth weren't just for chewing, they were canvases for artistic expression and symbols of status. You might see individuals with intricately carved teeth, perhaps filed into points or squares, or even adorned with jade inlays. Imagine the incredible skill required for such a procedure, performed without modern drills or anesthetics, using rudimentary tools like obsidian or flint. The pain would have been immense, yet the aesthetic and spiritual significance of these modifications drove people to endure it. This wasn't about treating decay, but about transforming the mouth into a living piece of art. You might then journey to ancient China, where the earliest documented use of silver amalgam fillings can be traced back to the Tang dynasty. Around 659 AD, while crude compared to modern amalgam, this represents a remarkably early attempt at restorative dentistry. You might also encounter traditional Chinese medicine practitioners using acupuncture to relieve toothache, inserting fine needles into specific points on the body to alleviate pain. This holistic approach, seeing the mouth as interconnected with the rest of the body's energy pathways, contrasts sharply with the purely extractive methods prevalent in the West at the time. Consider the diverse array of natural remedies used across various indigenous cultures. In parts of Africa, you might find communities using specific tree bark or roots as chew sticks, not just for cleaning, but for their natural antiseptic or analgesic properties. Imagine the practical knowledge passed down through generations, identifying plants that could genuinely offer some relief from the agony of a toothache, or even help prevent decay. These traditional practices, often dismissed by Western medicine, frequently contained valuable empirical wisdom about local flora. You could then find yourself among the Viking warriors of Scandinavia, whose skeletons sometimes reveal deliberate modifications to their teeth, horizontal grooves filed into their front incisors, The purpose of these grooves remains a subject of academic debate among archaeologists. Were they for identification, intimidation, or perhaps even to hold some kind of adornment? Whatever the reason, it shows a willingness to manipulate teeth for cultural purposes. Even if it meant deliberate alteration of healthy structures, travel to ancient India, where the practice of Ayurvedic medicine offered sophisticated, if sometimes unusual, dental remedies. You might find texts describing oil-pulling swishing oil in the mouth for oral hygiene, or the use of specific herbal pastes for gum health. The emphasis was often on preventative care and maintaining overall well-being, rather than just reacting to disease. The concept of daily rituals for oral hygiene, passed down for millennia, points to a long-standing awareness of the importance of mouth cleanliness. You might witness the stark difference in dental health between different global populations based on their diets. Indigenous groups whose diets consisted primarily of unprocessed, natural foods often exhibit significantly lower rates of tooth decay compared to populations introduced to refined sugars and processed carbohydrates. You see archaeological evidence from pre-colonial societies in the Americas, for instance, showing remarkably healthy teeth, often worn from tough diets but rarely riddled with cavities. A stark contrast to later populations. Consider the role of cultural beliefs and superstitions surrounding teeth. In some cultures, teeth might be seen as holding spiritual power, or their loss might be associated with curses or bad omens. You might hear of rituals performed when a child loses a tooth, or specific prayers offered for relief from the dental pain, reflecting a deep spiritual connection to these vital parts of the body that goes beyond mere physical function. Even the evolution of the toothbrush has global roots. While primitive chew sticks were universal, the earliest known bristle toothbrushes were invented in China around the 15th century, using bristles from pigs' necks attached to bone or bamboo handles. Imagine using such an implement, a stark contrast to the soft, ergonomic brushes you use today, but a monumental step forward in systematic oral hygiene. The global story of dental health is a powerful reminder that while the underlying biological challenges of decay and infection are universal, humanity's response to them has been incredibly varied, from intricate artistic expressions to ancient surgical techniques, and from herbal wisdom to the early seeds of modern restorative practices. Cultures across the world have grappled with the pain and importance of their teeth in unique and fascinating ways. This rich history underscores both our shared vulnerabilities and our endless capacity for adaptation and innovation. No matter where on earth you find yourself, as the echoes of ancient pains and modern marvels slowly fade, let your mind drift away from the jarring sounds of primitive extractions and the startling precision of high-speed drills. Feel the tension in your jaw soften, imagining the clean, comfortable sensation of a truly healthy mouth, a luxury denied to so many throughout history. The journey through time, with its countless toothaches and desperate remedies, has reached its gentle conclusion, leaving you in the quiet comfort of your own space. The flickering images of struggle and breakthrough, of human resilience and scientific triumph, are now settling into a peaceful stillness. Let the soft hum of the fan, or the quiet stillness of your room, guide you deeper into relaxation. There's nothing left to worry about, no ancient pain to fear, no historical discomfort to endure. Just the peaceful rhythm of your own breathing, easing you further and further into a tranquil calm. Let the last remnants of our historical dental tour dissolve into the quietude of the night.